Good morning everybody and welcome back to another video. Now before I start I will just say that our dog Willow is on the windowsill at the back of me just there, and we're expecting a couple of deliveries today, so at any moment without any warning she could start barking, so I'll pause the video when that happens and we'll rejoin, but just so you know that that could happen at any moment, so be prepared. So today's video, I was going to go out and shoot in the Lake Districts. That's what I wanted to do today, but as per usual the weather had other ideas, and the whole of the northwest where I live, I'll show you a quick map now, we've just got rain for pretty much most of the day, and while that's fine, I can manage with that. I didn't really want to travel all the way to the lakes just to be walking around in the rain all day, and I feel like I've done quite a bit of the more intimate studies, let's say, that I tend to gravitate towards when the weather is poor, but more on that towards the end of the video. So today I wanted to look back at my favourite images from the 2023 period, and when I decided to do this, because I couldn't get out, I actually thought to myself that I probably didn't have any real great images to share, and I thought I'd be restricted to maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3, something like that, but as it happens, by coincidence, I've got 10 images, and that wasn't planned. I've just gone through them this morning, gone through each individual file of each video, and yeah, 10 images, so really quite pleased. How many of those would I score a 5? If you watch my videos, you know my scoring system, 3 being my baseline and 5 being the images that don't come around very often. I've probably got, I'd say, 1 at a push, 1 that I really quite like, but I can always find problems with just about every picture that I take. So with that in mind, it's probably there or thereabouts to 5, and as good as you can realistically expect. There's always going to be something on every image virtually that you're not going to like about it, and that's just being critical of your own work. It's quite normal to do that. So let's get into it, and I'll put the images up. They are in a sort of order of which they were taken, but they're not in any order in terms of my preferences to them, in terms of where I've scored them. I've literally gone through all the folders and just picked the ones out that I really felt were my favourites. Incidentally, this year I managed to put out 25 videos, which is quite something, considering that I hold down a full-time job, and like everybody else we've got family commitments, so I didn't think that was too bad at all things considered. I generally put out a video once every fortnight, so it seems that this year I managed to complete that, so really quite pleased with that as an achievement for this year. So let's get into the images, and we'll go into the first one now, and this is it on screen that you can see. What can I say? It's one of probably my favourite images that I've taken for a while. It was a real lucky find. Just happened to be walking as usual, just you know, looking at the ground, trying to find compositions, and for all intents and purposes this is quite an everyday occurrence to find bracken laying on the ground like this, but the shapes really did suit the framing, and I felt that all the leaves around it were so complementary. There was nothing virtually to distract your eye from the image. There's 1 or 2 little things you could argue you could clone out, but I really like the old-fashioned feel about it, and a few people have said in the comments that it's got the look of an old master type painting, and I think that's been exaggerated by, or enhanced should I say, by the fact that I did put a small subtle vignette around the outside just to draw you into that centre point of the image. But lovely brown autumnal tones throughout, and yeah, overall some nice shapes, and I think the bracken frond really contrasts nicely with the more rounded shapes of the broadleaf leaves that it's laying on. But a really pleasing image for me. That's probably one of the better ones of the whole year, and quite a surprise, to be honest. I didn't expect this to turn out quite as well as it did, but yeah, really quite pleased with that one. So that's that one. Let's move on to the next. So this one, again, a really lucky find, and I think that's pretty much most of how it turns out when you're doing photography. Your good ones tend to be the ones you least expect, and whilst I've seen this type of thing in reality before, I've never been in a position where I've had a camera with me at the time, and it is just a simple sycamore seedling, and it's just germinating there on this lovely bed of moss, and I was able to just get down to eye level. It was growing on a fallen stump. The stump had mossed over because it'd been there for some time, and this particular day was a very wet day, and it was one of those days I thought I was going to struggle, and this thing was just so obvious when I just happened to my glance past where it was growing. You couldn't miss it. And I just love the way that it's standing proud of the mosses, and the background was difficult to control, but I've just about managed to separate it from the background so it really stands out. From a botanical point of view or an ecology point of view, natural history type subject matter, this is a really good image. And funnily enough, I've just submitted several of my images, which I do most years, to an agency that I still use. Not many of those, I have to say, are still around, but this particular one doesn't do too badly for me, and they've selected this as one of their images that they want to keep on file with a view to selling in the future. But interestingly, a few of you commented, which I absolutely 100% agree with, it looks quite alien when you look at it, and some people said it reminded them of a dragonfly, which I absolutely get. And it just looks like it's just resting there, like you often see them with the wings up at the back. Actually, damselflies tend to be the species that hold themselves when resting in this position. Dragonflies do actually rest with the wings out flat. So, but I suppose that's splitting hairs a little bit, but it did remind me also of a dragonfly type damselfly individual. And of course, the one thing that really makes this image above everything else is that little droplet of water. And as I say, it was absolutely chucking it down, and it was raining throughout the session that this was taken. But that little droplet of water, and you can just see the refracted light, the woodland just in the droplet there. And when you go in close, you can really see quite a bit more of that. But a fascinating subject, and just making sure that the camera was lovely, and the camera sensor, should I say, was lovely and flat plane onto the sycamore leaf, sycamore seedling, you know, the wing that you see there, and made sure that I got front sharpness throughout the whole of the image, and really helped to separate it from that background by using a narrow depth of field. So, moving on, we'll look at this next one. Now we're moving into spring, obviously here. Some of you will be familiar with this plant. It's very common. We get it in all our hedgerows across the UK, and it's a very delicate umbellifer type plant known as cow parsley. Certainly here in the UK you get great swathes of it growing in the hedgerow, and beautiful to see. It doesn't last a great length of time, so you've probably got a 2-week window when it's at its best, 2 to 3 week window when it's at its best. Not the easiest plant to photograph, I have to say, because it's so delicate. It stands anything between 3 and 6 feet tall, depending on the substrate it's growing in. But even in the slightest breeze, it's moving around a lot. And when I found this, I kept my eye on it because it was just down the road from where I live. And I just chose my moment carefully when I could just nip out of the house and grab a shot of it. And I took a lot of shots in the process of shooting this to get this one. There's probably 20 or 30 images, and it was a case of, which is often the case, where I just choose my favourite out of a sequence. But the intent was there from the beginning, and that was to try and separate a single flowering head from the surroundings, and I feel that I did that here really quite well. The plants in the background and in the foreground, in front of and behind the main flowering head, are close enough and far enough away that they've created this lovely softening effect of the white almost clouds that you see floating around the composition. I love the fact that it's all of it's only got the one tonal element through the entire scene, this lovely green wash that you get, and this lovely delicate soft whites as well. There's not really a lot I can comment on this. It's one of the few images that I struggle to find a problem with. As much as I look around, I don't feel there's anything to really criticise. If I was put on the spot and someone said to me, you have to try and find something, it would be at the background, sort of, if you just look to the sort of left-hand third, there's a vertical, almost pale line, and that's an out of focus tree in the far distance. I felt I could have removed it, but this image was so close to being perfect in its composition and execution that I didn't really want to mess with it. So that's one of my favourite images certainly of this year, one of my favourite summertime images, or late spring should I say. Yeah, really quite fond of that. So moving on to image number 4. So again, photographed at a similar time. This is sort of very, very early summer. As you can see by the blue, that the bluebells are in full swing, and that was the reason I went to this wood in the first place, was to try and get some bluebell shots. Bluebells are notoriously difficult to photograph up close, not easy at all. Much easier in a broader scene when you're just looking at carpets of bluebells. On this particular video I did manage to get a couple of shots of bluebells, but this image was the real star of the show, and this is a Stitchwork plant, and you get it obviously in shady woodlands, and you also get it in hedgerow banks here in the UK. I'm not sure what its distribution is outside of Europe, but a very, very common little plant. It's the greater Stitchwork, this I'm sure of that. There is a lesser Stitchwork as well, and the differences are between the way that the petals are divided. Now, without a book, I can't 100% say which way that is, but I have a feeling this is the greater Stitchwork. But you've got that typical group of 3, which is something that I often say works really well in photographs. Groups of 3s, groups of 5s, and individual subjects. When you get a pair, or say 4, your eye really hasn't got anything to rest on, and especially with 2, your eye's bouncing from one to the other, with nowhere really to settle. But the addition of this 3rd little flowering spike coming up in the background just creates that lovely stop to the image, and because it's slightly different as well, I think it really adds to the overall feel of the shot. I'm not sure I would have liked it quite as much had that been out as well. I think it's just nice to show these different stages of the flower, and especially because it's sort of in an upright position, you can see the sepals of the flower as well, which are the green claspers that hold the petals at the base of the flower. From a botanical point of view, I find that is really important within the image to be able to show that as well. Incidentally, this is another one of the shots that the photo library have taken off me just recently, but I just love that soft, lovely feel that you've got to this image. It's a very dreamy look to it, and of course that's as a result of taking the image with the 120mm macro lens that I've got, so I can get really nice and tight, and I can throw, again, as with the cow parsley, I can throw the background which is behind the main subject, and the foreground in front of the subject out of focus to create this lovely softness. And you can see on the left, and the sort of almost like on the left hand side of the frame and the bottom right, where the bluebells are actually, you can tell that they're just in front of the petals there, and they're just softening the edges of those petals. And similarly on the third one up at the top right, you can see that the bluebells have done the same in softening that as well. Really quite pleased with this image. Again, certainly one of my top 10 this year. What would I score it? Well, it's certainly a 4 and getting up towards a 5 for me is this one. It's one of those images that, again, I struggle to fault. If I was going to be put on the spot and said there has to be something, it would probably be that the top right flower is just a little bit too close to the top of the frame. But like I said, that's been really critical. So let's move on to the next. So there's definitely a theme developing here. My 120mm macro lens often comes out on trips. It saves me on so many occasions going in close and exploring the finer details. You can see from this image that we've got a bright white sky, overcast day. One of those days where often you just wonder what the heck you're going to photograph, and a little bit of creativity has just pulled me out of a bit of a hole here, and I had this idea of shooting up towards the tops of the flowers. This again, incidentally, is another cow parsley, and just getting underneath. You'll have seen me doing on videos where I don't look through the lens. I flip the LCD screen out so I can see it, and I hold the camera beneath the subject and move it around looking for opportunistic shots, and that's what I did here. But I was very careful with the framing. As you can see, that I've got the two flowering spikes in the middle there, and then you've got one that is out of focus but running through the center line just to create that balance. And then of course on the right hand side and the left hand side, you've got the verticals which are moving out of frame just to create a nice pleasing settled composition. But I do like these arty type of shots. They're angles that you don't see often. From a natural history point of view, it's not a great example of the plant. It really is falling more on the creative side of photography rather than representational, and that's something that I really often do like to try and explore. But shallow depth of field, and obviously a fast enough shutter speed to freeze any movements. Again, this is such a delicate plant, and you do find that it sways around quite a lot. But a surprise find, this one. It was really nice to finally get something on this day where I felt that I got something worthwhile, something I can go home happy with. So at the end of this video, I want to talk a little bit about going forward in 2024, and the shots that you're seeing now are the reason why I'm making some slight changes, which again I said I'll talk about at the end. This is a really lovely shot. I was so pleased with this, and it's such a common occurring plant. It's a sycamore leaf. It was just laying on the ground, and it was in a patch of woodland, if you remember the video, where for some reason, for whatever reason, all the leaves had taken on this glaucous look, glaucous meaning type, like a bluey green look to it. And but what was really catching my eye was the fact that the veins in the leaf have got this lovely golden look to them, almost like they've been covered in gold leaf. And the leaf itself, the green, almost looks like a patina that you get on bronze, and it was so unusual. And the ground was just carpeted in these leaves, and they just stood out against all the other decaying leaf matter around them. And it was a no-brainer, really. It was one of those shots that you just have to do. And all day long I will photograph these types of images because I just never get bored of them, and when they work, my goodness, they really work. And I was so lucky with this one. I managed to find two intersecting leaves which were the main characters of the shot. You've got the one at the lower right hand side, and then you've got the main leaf, which is the one with the ribs coming down towards the bottom of the frame, fanning out, situated on the left hand side. And look at that stalk just tucked conveniently out of the way, and I had no part in that. It was just a case of finding the shot in situ. A little bit of cleaning up perhaps needed doing, but nothing other than that. I left all the tiny little holes that often you feel that you want to clone out. I just felt it was so perfect that I just didn't want to touch anything of it. Again, my 120mm macro lens, probably my most commonly used lens by far at the moment. Nice easy shot, just making sure that the camera was nice and square on to the image, and you could take all day long getting a shot like this. The lighting conditions were critical. I had overcast light, so I've no blocks of sunlight, no contrast to deal with, but really quite pleased with that. Now, if you ask me to criticise this, I really would be struggling, and I probably wouldn't give it a 5 in my scoring system, purely and simply because I just feel it needs something else. Whilst it's very simple, it's very clean, it's composed nicely, all the elements in the image are there, there's something missing, and whatever that might be, I have no idea, but it needs to have more of a surprise to be lifted to the next level. It's very representational, but I still think it's very well seen nonetheless. So quite possibly my most surprising sequence of images by far this year, and the video was titled Lost Souls, and if you've not seen that video, you're probably looking at this wondering what I'm talking about, but it's only when you see the faces in the image that you realise where I got the title of the video. It's just so unusual, it's bizarre that these can be found just by photographing into flowing water, and it really makes me wonder what else you could find by experimenting like this. Very simple to take. It was just a relatively slow shutter speed, just enough to freeze the water, but still allow a little bit of movement, and I was playing around with that on the bridge. This again, incidentally, was another one of those days when it was pouring down, and it was a case of having to pull something out of the bag to save the video. But my goodness, this was a real surprise, and even now when I look back at it, I feel a little bit creeped out by the faces that I can see in the images. It's just bizarre, really is. The photograph has got this lovely pencil, charcoal type feel about it, which I absolutely love. Monochrome as well. I've reduced all the colour, taking it out of this just so you can focus on the lines and shapes within the frame. And of course I've cropped this to 16:9 as well, because I felt that there was no value in adding the top and the bottom of the frame. I just wanted to focus in on these characters. But yeah, so unusual, and certainly some of my favourite images came from this session. Not to everybody's taste, I might add. I suspect without the context of the film or some explanation of how I interpret the image, will probably be lost on most people. And in the comments of the video, it was very split, in that some people was absolutely blown away by what I created, and some people really didn't get it. So yeah, very individual indeed. But yeah, amazing what you can get from a little stream on a pouring wet day. So more recently, those of you that follow the channel will know that I've been to Scotland, and I stayed for a week around Abbeymoor, and it's just bizarre, isn't it? I mean, we travel 6 hours, 300 miles to Scotland, and you expect to be photographing the Cairngorm Mountains and snow and the lakes, or I should say lochs, the pine forest, and here I am on this video stood in a bus stop photographing the glass roof. And it just happens that way sometimes. This quite easily could have been photographed in a bus stop in Lancashire, but just so happened I was in the Cairngorms at the time, and we'd been waiting for a bus to take us into Aviemore, and I just happened to look up, as I often do, and this is what I was presented with. And very, very simple. Now I will say that it'd be interesting to hear your views on this, is that when I referred to one of the earlier images with the Stitchwork, I talked about 3s are better than 2s. This is that case in point where you've got obviously 2 leaves, they are aspen leaves, and your eye, you could argue, is bouncing from one to the other and nowhere to rest. The only thing I will say on a positive note to this is that the fact that they are on a diagonal and they're both facing in the same direction. So you've got some geometry, let's say, at work that helps your eye follow from the bottom left-hand corner through to the top right. But maybe I'm just making that up as I go along, I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, I feel like it works. And that bus stop, bus shelter roof, the glass roof covered in water, has just set them in the most beautiful surroundings. And obviously the leaves are in their autumn finery, and you've got all the details, and it's such a detailed image when you get really close into these leaves. You can see every little vein. The background is partially, again, another white sky, but I've used, to good effect, as I explained in the video, that I've used the canopy of the trees just to move them in, just to move the trees into position so that the leaves don't look too contrasty against the white sky. I was really pleased with this shot. I saw it on one day and I managed to get back to it 2 days later. Now I will add that when I saw it on the first day and I took the shot with my iPhone, that the leaves were much brighter yellow than this, and it hadn't taken them long at all to start to decay and break down, especially that bottom left one. That was virtually fully yellow when I first saw it. But whether I like the iPhone shot over this shot, I don't really mind either, but it was interesting to see how quickly that they can rot down in such a short space of time. But yeah, a real nice, surprising find when you think that I travelled 300 miles and 6 hours to take this shot. So again, on my trip to Scotland, I managed to find this beautiful, grand Scots pine, this mature Scots pine, surrounded by all these individual and younger plantation pines. And my goodness, does it jump out. It really has a very dominant feel over the rest of the woodland. Now, I almost didn't put this one in because I'm still a little bit on the fence personally about it, because I would have preferred better conditions. My dog's about to bark. Didn't think I was going to get away with that. Yes, you, noisy dog. As I was saying, so yeah, this I almost didn't put this shot in because I would have preferred more atmospheric conditions, and I do have a little bit of a problem with the base of the image in that it's not really that interesting, and if I'd have got some mist, it would have softened all that without any question. It would have looked much nicer for it. But I've kept it in because it's such a strong, striking image, and certainly in the comments a lot of people really liked the shot, and I felt that because there was such affection for it that maybe I was missing the point a little bit. But I certainly get why people like it. It's just got that lovely dominant, impressive feel over the rest of the wood. But very, very simple shot to take. Just benefited from the use of a wide angle lens, getting close to the tree and shooting really quite up at it, just to make sure that all those surrounding younger pines, all the converging verticals, just created that effect like they're all just reaching for the sky. One or two people call this image the gatekeeper, which was interesting. I'm not really a big one for naming my images, but I think that's just because I don't feel that I'm that great at doing it, so I tend not to do that. But yeah, I can see why some of you would think that about this particular shot. But what would I score this in my scoring system? Well, I would probably have to give this a 3.5, getting up towards a 4, but certainly good enough to make my top 10 this year. So this one is my final image of the set, and I've left this one till last because this one probably is my favourite, and if I was going to score it, I would have to give it a very close 5. Yes, again, I can find something to criticise. The path on the left-hand side that's making its way into the distance is a little bit off balancing, I suppose, that I would argue, and you've got a stone wall over to the left-hand side there. But if you can not be distracted by that and focus on the main character, which is this lovely central beech tree which is flanked on both sides by more beech trees further back, it's a very, very strong image. And just look at that light on that left-hand side of the trunks. I just love that. That's streaming in from the moor that's just off to the left-hand side there. And if you haven't watched this video, go back and watch it, because I do a good sequence where I'm walking around this woodland, showing you how I came across this individual just by walking with the camera and holding it up, and it just suddenly came into view. But if you have watched the video leading up to this one, you'll know that this was taken one of 2 shots where not 10 minutes before this, it was sun shining. It was just a basic nice summery day, but there was lots of storm clouds nearby, and we were getting periods of thunder and just these squalls of really strong wind and rain, and this was taken during one of those squalls. And it was a great example of going out when conditions are very unstable, and just happened to be in the right place at the right time, find a great composition. I sat on it for about half an hour with a friend and just waited for one of these squalls to move in, and it really felt like I'd planned and executed a shot rather than just finding things on the floor. And certainly, quite possibly, if not the most favourite image that I've taken this year, and I really would like to think that I could get more of this quality in the year to come. Now, going into 2024, I'm going to change the direction of the channel ever so slightly. I feel, for me personally, for my own personal photography, I want to explore slightly further afield than what I have been doing. Now, since lockdown, this channel has really focused on finding images very, very close to where you live, and it's become a bit of a signature of mine that in recent years. And whilst I've really enjoyed doing that, I do feel like I'm missing out on some of the bigger landscapes, which I feel like they're calling me a little bit more. More of the eyewitness type approach to photography, less of the artistic type. Now, what I'm planning to do, because I don't want to let that side of that go either, is that whilst I've been travelling local to me, I'm still going to stay fairly local, but I'm going to be preparing to travel up to around about 2 hours from home. Now, 2 hours for me gets me to the Lake District, it gets me to the Yorkshire Dales, it gets me to the Peak District, and all these places have got such beauty for the grander scene, and I want to explore that a little bit more. So my plan is on my days when I get to do the videos is to travel to one of those locations the evening before, stay overnight, then I'm on location, and whatever the weather brings I will take, but I'm going to try as much as I can to shoot one of the bigger scenes first and foremost, and then as the day progresses during the shoot I will search for things that I just find just lying around incidentally, like I've been doing locally. It's just that when I go local I haven't got the option of the broader scene particularly, so I just want to expand my horizons a little bit and branch out into those newer areas where I can get some landscape shots as well. And I suppose it's making the channel appeal to a broader audience as opposed to just the people that are interested in the close-ups. So that concludes the video. I'm going to wish you all well for the new year and say thank you so much for watching the channel over 2023. It's been an absolute pleasure making the videos, and I certainly hope you've enjoyed them. The feedback has been great so far, and yeah, looking forward to what the new year might bring for myself. So leave some comments below, let me know what you think of today's video and the images, and as always, don't forget to subscribe, and certainly ring that bell for notifications. Many of the people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please give us some thought to subscribing in the new year. It costs nothing to do that, and that would be fantastic if you could do that for the channel. It really helps out. For those of you that want to support more, there is the option of Patreon and of course the YouTube membership. I've mentioned it before. You can support the channel with as little as 99p per month. So until next time, I will say thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.